welcome to another episode of Inside Instana. Now, I'm Instana CTO Chris Bailey, and in a slight departure to the usual format, rather than being joined by one of the technical team, today I'm joined by Thanos, Matzanas, and Mike Mallo from our product management team. So Thanos, Mike, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little about what you do inside Instana?
Sure. So I'm Mike Mallo. I'm head of product for Instana. So I look at what we're doing, set the themes for the product direction, listen to our customers, figure out what's the most important pain points, and figure out where we need to focus.
Okay.
I'm Thanos Matzanas. I'm a staff PM working on the product organization. I'm focusing on our strategy, how we communicate with our clients, our messaging, and our analyst relations.
Okay. Now, one of the first things that happens when I start talking to customers is because there's a lot of products in the observability space. So one of the first things I get asked is what makes Instana different, right? What makes Instana kind of unique and valuable to them?
Well, I'll take the first shot at this. So the first thing we do is we collect high fidelity data. And the reason we do that, first and foremost, is so that we don't have any gaps in what we're collecting. We call it the observability gap. So we collect data at a 1 second interval to make sure that we're seeing things as they're happening, and we haven't sampled something where something may have happened, and especially in ephemeral environments, gone away before we've collected it.
Yep.
I think the second part of that is we collect 100% of all traces that come into the product. And some people may say, well, why would you do that? Why shouldn't we just be sampling? So we're reducing our data ingest. The main reason we have that as a key principle of Instana is so that we don't miss anything that's happened. And we can also see where every transaction went through. Mm-hmm. So if one of your customers came in and had a bad experience, we can always go back in time and see what that went through, what technologies that went through, and where there was a problem. The second thing that's real important is it allows us to connect everything together in context, right? So if we have a developer, let's say, that just pushed out a new application in Golang, and they rewrote it from Java, maybe that wasn't registered, and they didn't, in a traditional APM environment, didn't have that observed. In Instana, the minute one of our customer transactions goes through that new technology, because we're collecting 100% of those traces, we've actually picked that up. So it gives us a much better granularity, lowers the risk of what we might have missed in an environment, and being able to stitch everything together. So that's a good part of why we are collecting that data, why we built Instana that way, and really ready for cloud native, right? A lot of these principles were put together in place to handle these cloud native environments that our customers are running. So that's a lot of why Instana was built and what it's built for.
Okay, so let's bring that up on the screen and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so this is high fidelity data, right? So this is where you talked about we collect 100% of every request going through the system. We collect single second granularity of data, right? So metrics as they occur, we've got them, they transmit to the back end, we can analyze them, 100% of every trace. Now, those are kind of really fundamental differentiators that no one else has, but what are those actually useful for? That having those capabilities, what can we do with that provides the actual valuable outcome?
Yeah, I think the first thing we definitely see is that as you get all those traces in, whenever something happens, let's say you have a log file that has produced an error, and you want to go back and see what transaction was that connected to. Because you have all of those application transactions in there, you can definitely connect right to that application, and we can see here it is all in context, right? So it becomes the glue that brings everything together. So if you look at some other competitive products, they may say we've got logging context, we can bring your logs, your traces, and your metrics together, but it requires you to tag all your environment pieces for that to come together. And that's really the magic of Instana, is that trace that was always collected is that glue.
Yeah, so that's the scenario I talked to Sven about a couple of episodes ago, where we can actually collect application logs as part of the request.
Exactly.
Which means that if a request has an error, we've got the log at the point in the request where it was created. Now, of course, we've also got the reverse. For any log message that we've got, if it's in the scope of a request, we have that request, which helps us understand why the log message was created. Now, if you're sampling the trace, there's no guarantee you've actually got that trace record that caused the log. So yeah, that's really powerful for that debugging scenario. But there's a whole bunch of other things, right?
Yeah.
We can do fine-grained SLOs,
yes.
right? Because
now you go to the higher level, right? What is needed from a reporting perspective, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not collecting all the data, you're not able to do reporting that's going to be trusted by your managers and your directors and your VPs, right? So that they are looking for precise data to be able to make decisions on the data. So for us, it's extremely important to collect all the data, make sure that it's collected every second as well, so we have the granularity, and then being able to report on that with about analytics, with our SLOs, with our business monitoring, being able to report it back and gain the trust of the users.
Okay, so high fidelity data, complete collection, single second metrics, using that to, yes, give us logs in context, to give us SLOs where we can say, I want a different SLO for mobile users versus web users, or for different countries, because it's just a query over that trace. Like, there's lots of things that then built on top of it. So as well as high fidelity data, like, what else have we got that makes this unique?
The next step building on that is, okay, what do we do with the data, right? Mike mentioned, okay, we enrich the data, we contextualize the data, but why is that important, right? It's important because the users that are going to use Instana, right, they are doing a million other things, right? So they're expecting that when data comes into Instana, it's going to be quickly contextualized, but also quickly being able to consume the data. So that's where automation comes in.
Yep.
And Instana was built, with automation as a foundation, at the foundation, right? And that's how we can provide automatic deployment, automatic updates for our agents. That takes away all the operational time that the teams need to spend. We can have automatic application profiling. So we understand your application, right? All the dependencies that it has, everything that is connected to the application, any call that's being made outside of your application, we're able to figure that out automatically, right? Event correlation, grouping, right? All of those things are happening quickly, and the user is ready to use it as soon as the agent is installed in their application. And more importantly, we're able to show you a map of all the different dependencies on application perspectives, and we're able to show you the whole application in one view, right? And automatically understand what's connected with each component, right? And as we said, what's the value of this? The value of this is the quick time to glass, as we say, right? So I install the agents, I collect the data, and I quickly can find issues and understand quickly how my application is behaving. We have dashboards. We're very opinionated, right? We have dashboards that show you where the value is right away. How can you quickly find issues, right? And another piece that goes back to why we're collecting all the data is that you're able to filter all of that. If you have all the data, you're able to filter it any way you want, and you're able to figure out quickly what you need to keep and what you need to not use. And then the next step is, okay, now I have all the data. I can do I can automatically get all the different configurations that I need to be able to consume the data. So that's the next step, is what do I do with it, right? And for us, the next kind of area that we're looking at is the intelligent actions, right?
Yeah, so a lot of the intelligent actions that we take really kind of fall into how you want to resolve an incident. At the end of the day, that's what a lot of people are looking for, is the performance of our applications, right? The reliability of them. And when we look at the actions, we're starting all the way from show me where the probable root cause is. We can actually show you fairly obviously, like bringing in from the source data to where the root cause was, right? So if you think about a symptomatic problem where you've got a slow latency on a web service, it may be caused of maybe the server it's running on has high CPU. And maybe that server is actually dependent on another server that has a database that is having a problem. The machine with the high CPU keeps retrying, and that's causing the high CPU, and then that's causing a latency. So this chain of reaction, you don't want to get three separate events, right? You want one single event that says, here's the impact to the user, here's the root cause, and here's the other affected incidents. So we put all those things together and give you that single incident, but then show you that graph as well, as far as what happened. And as Thanos was saying, we've automatically pre-built this dependency graph, so you can actually see that in real time if you want to. Then the next step we take is, let's show you a recommended action. We've just went to GA last month on our action catalog, which allows you to set a set of actions against events that you've got. So these could be simple things like a manual action, let's look at a runbook, things that we know how to do, to fully automated actions. That could be, let me go reach out and go collect more information. For example, if there's a problem you're having with a network connection, maybe I want to run traceroute and store that to a file at the time that happens. To, if a disk space is full, maybe I automatically run a script to clean up the disk. But bring all this intelligence and automation to it so that we can then look back in time as you've had more of these things happen, and then being able to tell you with confidence, here's the suggested next action to take.
It's kind of interesting that we represent these as like three different things. High data fidelity, ubiquitous automation. So like we auto discover things, we auto instrument, we auto update our agents. We've got automatic dashboards, right? But these all come together to try and automate everything, right?
Yep.
We can't do intelligent actions without high fidelity data.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? The more data, the more context, the more insights, the more we can automate. We kind of represent them as three overlapping things that bring together to try and hit this goal that your uptime should be all the time at the lowest possible cost, because we've automated everything it's possible to automate, and the ops teams are now the controller that's deciding whether to invoke the things that we've automated for them.
It's also important to note that you cannot do automation, you cannot do intelligent actions the proper way, the way we feel is proper, if you don't have all the data. And it's extremely important to connect that because, for example, let's take the observability gap that Mike mentioned prior, right? If I collect, for example, data every 10 seconds, it means that I might lose in between, right? I might lose an incident, or I might lose something that's extremely important that will kick off an automation. So let's say I get information that I'm having a lot of users that are coming in and I need to scale up. But those weren't real users. It was a security incident that created that. If I don't get the next alert, I will start scaling up. I will start paying a bill to my cloud provider, which I could have avoided because I could have a second alert that would come in and say, this is a security incident, stop scaling, right? So it's extremely important to understand that when data comes in, we collect it every second, and we create automation and actions based on the data we are collecting, right?
Okay.
Without any gaps.
Okay, so these are kind of like the unique differentiators inside Instana today, like. But what's the next set of differentiators we're generating? What's coming on top of that?
So yeah, go ahead.
No, I'd say we're mostly taking a lot of those differentiators and extending them, right, to really augment what the teams are doing, right? So we definitely have some teams that want to take this as full automation, but there's also teams that are kind of just starting this journey from a process maturity curve, right? So we're bringing in new data types, right? So open telemetry is one of these enablers that's allowing us to bring in data from many different places that maybe weren't first-party collected data we've got today, right?
Yep.
So being able to look at those differentiators we've got, we'll just go back to the high data fidelity, right? So we've got a lot of good data in context. So if we're augmenting our data with open telemetry, we can bring it in context with things we already have, right? So for a team that wants to augment with open telemetry, Instana is a great place to bring that in without having to do a whole lot of new tagging, new mapping, bring this to my data model. We'll bring that in. The automation is there, right? So as we go and bring in more and more of that open telemetry data for data types we already have, we're automatically going to create those dashboards, right? And then back to those intelligent actions, we can also generate actions on that open telemetry data, right? So everything we do for a whole new data type like open telemetry, we can apply that to it as well. Yep. So it helps us grow that.
And as we go, we talked about cloud native prior, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely important to understand that there's no cloud native without automation, right? That's the whole point of going to the cloud. You're trying to automate everything from how you are creating your cloud infrastructure all the way how you are scaling it up, down, right? So the same goes for Instana, right? Automation is the core, is one of the core components of our platform. So as we progress, right, we're gonna keep pushing to get more automation into our platform, right? Yep. Intelligent actions, as Mike said. Okay, now how do you do intelligent actions with the open telemetry data that comes in? All of these things kind of are stitched together, right? And that's what we're looking at. Can we bring other types of data in that will allow us to do further automation in other areas, right? Can we make sure that Instana can be, you can use Terraform and CloudFormation to be able to install Instana at the time where you're building your infrastructure with ready-made dashboards and everything. That will shorten the time that the teams spend, when they're spinning up a new area, that they will have, the dashboards already there, the SLOs already built, their alerts are going to be there. So everything is going to be pre-built for them. Yep. So as soon as they spin up a new area or a new cloud for their company and a new application, everything is going to be ready-made for them.
Okay, so really kind of like building on top of that foundation. So more data, more coverage, more of the environment that we can work with more levels of automation, whether that's like how we set up more observability for new environments, how we automatically set up dashboards and teams, to how we use that data to generate more insights and more actions. So like automatically detecting problems, resolving them, being able to work with things like GitOps in cloud native so that we can resolve problems through that mechanism. Yep. So lots of exciting stuff that's happening. So thanks, Mike. Thanks, Thanos, for talking to me.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep. Okay.